My son, I never imagined this would happen. Not in a million years. I sit here today, staring at the old family pictures on the wall, trying to make sense of everything that's happened. The house that used to feel like home, filled with the laughter of my children, the clinking of dishes at family dinners, the warmth of cherished memories. All of it is slipping through my fingers, just like sand. It's funny how life works, isn't it? I never imagined I'd be sitting here at this point in my life, recounting the pain of betrayal. Not from a stranger, not from someone I barely knew, but from my own son, the one I raised with so much love, the one I gave everything to. I'm Sophia, and this is the story of how my son, the one I trusted with everything, betrayed me in the most unimaginable way. It all started years ago when I decided to take a step back from my career to focus on building my family. I thought I was doing the right thing, raising my children with love, care and support, pouring all my energy into making sure they felt secure and cherished. My son, Michael, was always a good boy. He had his moments, sure, but I knew deep down that he would grow into a man I could be proud of. Looking back, I remember the early years with such fondness. He was a curious child, always asking questions, always wanting to know how things worked. He was never a troublemaker, never the kind to act out or cause a scene. He was respectful, kind-hearted, and always cared about others, especially his little sister, Emily. They were inseparable. I'd often find them playing together in the backyard, laughing and sharing secrets, making up stories. But as with all children, as they grow, they begin to change. Michael started high school, and I noticed a shift. He became more distant. He wasn't as open with me anymore. I had hoped it was just a phase or result of adolescence, but it soon became clear that this wasn't just a passing phase. My boy was growing up, and with that came new pressures, new challenges that I couldn't understand. I tried to be patient, but the distance between us grew wider and wider. The more I tried to reach out, the more he pulled away. It was when he turned 18 that everything started to fall apart. He decided he wanted to go to college, but not just any college. He wanted to go to a prestigious university far away, one that I could barely afford. I didn't hesitate to support him. After all, he was my son. I'd spent his entire life making sure he had everything he needed, making sure he had every opportunity to succeed. So, I dipped into my savings, took out a loan, and paid for his tuition without a second thought. He was my son, and he deserved the best, right? When he left for college, it was one of the hardest moments of my life. Watching him pack up his things, so eager to leave, to start a new chapter in his life, I felt a pang of loss. The house felt quieter, emptier. His absence left a hole that I couldn't fill. But I kept telling myself that it was for the best. He was growing up. He was becoming the man I had always hoped he would be. The first few months after he left for college were rough. I missed him more than I let on. I'd text him every day, trying to keep the connection alive, but his responses grew shorter. "Everything's fine, Mom. Don't worry," he'd say. And I tried not to. I told myself it was just the pressures of school, the weight of all that he had to do. But deep down, I knew something wasn't right. He started coming home less often. When he did come home, it was only for short visits. There was a coldness to him, an emotional distance that I couldn't quite explain. I thought maybe he was just busy with his studies. Maybe he had found new friends, new interests that didn't involve me. But I never gave up on him. I kept supporting him even when I felt like I was losing him. And then came the day, the moment that changed everything. It had been months since Michael had last visited home, and I'd been feeling the absence of his presence deeply. So when he called one afternoon, I was thrilled. "Mum, I need to talk to you about something important, he said, his voice sounding tense, like he was bracing for something. I could hear the unease in his voice, and I instantly knew something was wrong. What's the matter, sweetheart? You can talk to me, you know that, I said, trying to sound reassuring, though I felt my own heart start to race. There was a long pause on the other end of the line, and then he spoke again. Mum, I've been thinking a lot about our future, and I think it's time for us to make some changes. I could feel the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. What was he talking about? What kind of changes? I asked, my voice trembling now. There was another long pause, and then Michael finally said something that I will never forget. Something that changed everything. I've decided to sell the house, Mom, and the car too. The words hit me like a physical blow. My mind scrambled to make sense of what he had just said. What? Michael, what are you talking about? Why would you sell the house? This is our family's home. He didn't sound remorseful. Didn't sound like he was trying to explain himself. Instead, his voice was cold, distant, like he had already made up his mind. I know this is hard, Mum, but it's what's best for us. I've been thinking about it a lot, and I just think it's time we move on. Move on? I repeated, my voice shaking with disbelief. This is our home. This is where we've spent so many years together, where we've shared so many memories. How could you just sell it without even talking to me? He sighed, sounding exasperated. I'm doing this for the best, Mom. You don't understand. It's time to let go. And just like that, my world came crashing down. The house, the car, the things that meant so much to me, to our family, were being sold. Without my consent, without my input, my own son had made the decision to strip away everything that had made me feel secure. Everything that had represented our family's history. I tried to keep it together, tried to keep my emotions in check, but I couldn't. My heart was breaking. You can't do this, Michael. You just can't, I pleaded. But it was already too late. The buyers had already been lined up. The paperwork had already been signed. And Michael, my own flesh and blood, was determined to go through with it. As I sat there, listening to him speak, a heavy realization settled over me. The boy I had raised, the boy I had trusted with everything, was gone. This wasn't the son I had loved and nurtured for so many years. This was a stranger standing before me. A stranger who had made a decision that would forever alter the course of my life. I hung up the phone, numb, the weight of betrayal settling. Deep within me, how could he do this? How could he turn his back on me like this? But it wasn't just the house or the car, it was the realization that my son, the one I had poured my heart into, had chosen to leave me behind, to erase everything I had worked so hard to build. The trust I had placed in him had been shattered in an instant. Ask ChatGPT. The next few days were a blur of emotions, anger, confusion, and heartbreak. I couldn't focus on anything. I barely slept, my mind constantly racing with thoughts of betrayal, loss, and the uncertainty of what had just happened. The world around me seemed to spin in slow motion as I tried to process what Michael had done. How could he? How could he just sell the house, the place where so many precious memories lived, without even discussing it with me? In the days that followed that terrible phone call, I couldn't escape the overwhelming sense of grief that had consumed me. I was walking through life in a fog. Every time I glanced at the walls of the house, I saw more than just brick and mortar. I saw the walls that had witnessed my children's laughter, their struggles, their growth. I saw the places where I'd held Michael when he was a baby, where I'd comforted him during his teenage heartbreaks, where we'd spent countless family nights together. But now, it was all gone erased by one decision, one phone call. How could he be so cold, so indifferent to everything that we had built together? I couldn't understand it. I couldn't comprehend how the person I had poured so much of myself into, the one I had trusted with every part of my heart, could just disregard everything I held dear. The house wasn't just a building to me. It was a reflection of the love and dedication I had put into raising my children, a testament to the sacrifices I had made, the long hours I had worked to provide for them. How could Michael take that away from me? How could he tear it all down? I felt betrayed on a level I never thought possible. It wasn't just about the house. It was about everything that had led up to that moment. All the years I had spent sacrificing for him, all the trust I had given him, all the love and care I had invested. And for what? So he could turn his back on me. So he could sell the very things that represented everything I had worked so hard for. As I struggled to cope with the loss, I tried reaching out to Michael again, desperate for answers, desperate for some form of communication that might help me understand what had happened. I called him every day, leaving voicemail after voicemail. Each message was more desperate than the last, each one pleading with him to talk to me, to explain himself. At every single call went unanswered. His silence was like a knife in my chest. The more I tried to reach him, the further he seemed to pull away. I couldn't understand it. Was he angry with me? Had I done something wrong? Was I to blame for the distance between us? I replayed every moment of our relationship in my mind, trying to figure out where things had gone wrong. But no matter how much I thought about it, I couldn't find the answer. I thought back to the years when he was a child, those carefree days when he would run to me for comfort, when his biggest concern was what game we would play next. He used to look at me with such trust in his eyes, such love. But somewhere along the way, something had changed, and I didn't know what it was. Was it when he went to college? Was it when he started dating that girl, Natalie, who seemed so perfect on the outside, but whom I had always felt uneasy about? I didn't know. All I knew was that my son, the one I had raised, the one I had given everything for, was no longer the same. The boy I had known and loved had been replaced by someone, unrecognizable, someone who would rather sell the very things that tied him to his family than face the consequences of his choices. It was like he had become someone else entirely. Someone who was willing to hurt me, to break my heart, for his own gain. I couldn't stand the pain anymore. I couldn't bear to sit in the empty house, looking at the empty spaces where our memories had once lived. So, I did what I thought was the only thing I could do. I drove to his apartment, determined to confront him, to force him to explain himself. The drive was long, and my heart was heavy with dread. I wasn't sure what I would say or how I would say it, but I knew that I couldn't keep going on like this, unable to understand what had happened, unable to reconcile the son I had loved with the man who had hurt me so deeply. When I arrived at his apartment, my hands were shaking. I knocked on the door, the sound echoing in the quiet hallway. There was no answer. I knocked again, harder this time, my heart pounding in my chest. I wasn't leaving until I had answers. Finally, the door creaked open, and there he was, Michael, standing in front of me, looking more distant than I had ever seen him. He didn't smile, didn't greet me with the warmth that used to characterize our relationship. He simply stared at me with cold eyes, as if he were seeing a stranger. I swallowed hard, trying to steady my nerves. Michael, we need to talk. I don't understand why you did what you did. Why you sold the house. Why you sold the car. Without even telling me. Without even considering how this would affect me. He didn't say anything at first. He just stood there, his arms crossed over his chest, his expression unreadable. The silence between us was thick, like a wall separating us, making it impossible for me to reach him. I trusted you, Michael. I trusted you with everything. And you took that trust and threw it away without a second thought, I said, my voice breaking. He finally spoke, his words cold and dismissive. I don't need your trust, Mom. I don't need you to tell me what to do with my life anymore. I've made my decisions and I'm not going to change them. His words stung. They felt like a slap in the face. I tried to hold back the tears, but they came anyway, streaming down my face. How could you do this? How could you betray me like this? Michael stepped back, almost as if he were trying to distance himself from the pain I was feeling. I didn't betray you, Mum. I did what I had to do. I'm not going to apologize for it. I felt like I had been slapped. He wasn't sorry. He wasn't even remorseful. He had no understanding of the hurt he had caused. No recognition of the weight of his actions. It was as if everything I had done for him, everything I had given him, meant nothing. And in that moment, I realized that the son I had once known was gone. This person standing before me, cold and indifferent, was a stranger. I turned to leave, my heart heavy with the finality of what had just transpired. But before I could walk away, Michael spoke again, his voice softer this time. I don't expect you to understand, Mom, but I've made my choices, and I need you to accept that. And just like that, I walked out of his life, knowing that things would never be the same again. The son I had trusted with everything had made his choice, and I had no choice but to accept it. But it wasn't over. Not yet. The pain of betrayal still lingered, and I knew deep down that there was more to this story than Michael was letting on. What had really driven him to make these decisions? What had happened in his life that had changed him so much? I didn't know yet, but I was determined to find out. Weeks passed and I found myself floating in a sea of confusion, constantly battling the whirlwind of emotions that churned inside me. The sting of betrayal was still fresh, and I couldn't seem to escape the ache that had taken root in my chest. Each day felt like I was walking through life in a haze, the weight of everything that had happened pressing down on me with no escape. The memories of Michael's voice, so cold and indifferent, replayed in my mind on a loop. I couldn't let go of the hurt, but I also couldn't stop wondering what had driven Michael to make such a drastic decision. He had always been close to me, at least, that's how I remembered it. So what had happened? What changed in him? Why had he turned his back on everything we had? I didn't know the answers, and every attempt I made to reach out to him had been met with silence. No calls, no responses to messages, just an endless void where my son used to be. I was left to piece together the wreckage of what had once been a loving, trusting relationship. But then, one afternoon, the phone rang. I saw Michael's name flash on the screen, and for a moment, my heart leapt in my chest. My hands trembled as I answered the call, desperately hoping that this would be the moment he would finally explain himself, that he would show remorse for what he had done. But the voice on the other end wasn't Michael's. It was Natalie's, his wife. "Mum," she said, her tone stiff and formal. "We need to talk. There's something you should know." I felt a cold knot form in my stomach. I wasn't sure if I was ready to hear whatever she had to say, but I had no choice. If this was my chance to finally understand what had really happened, I had to take it. I took a deep breath and braced myself. "What's going on, Natalie?" There was a long pause before she spoke again, and when she did, her voice was laced with regret. "I don't know how to say this, but Michael, he's been keeping a secret from you. A big one. And I think you deserve to know the truth." I felt my pulse quicken. What secret could Michael possibly be hiding from me? My mind raced with 1,000 different possibilities, each one more terrifying than the last. Natalie continued, her voice tinged with a quiet sorrow. "Michael's been struggling for a long time, Mom. Struggling with money, with his job, with everything. He's been trying to keep it from you, trying to protect you from the truth. But the reality is, he's in a lot of debt. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Michael, my son, the one I had raised with so much love and care, had been hiding something like this from me. The shock of it hit me like a wave crashing against the shore, sweeping me off my feet. Debt? I repeated, my voice barely above a whisper. What kind of debt? How bad is it? I'm not sure exactly how much, but it's a lot. And it's been getting worse. He was afraid to tell you. Afraid that you'd be disappointed in him. But he's been using credit cards, borrowing money, trying to keep up appearances. And now, he's reached the breaking point. He doesn't know what else to do. The realization settled in like a heavy stone. Michael's entire life had been a facade, built on a lie. All the success he had seemed to enjoy, the career he had built, the life he had created with Natalie, none of it was real. It was all built on borrowed time, on borrowed money. And in trying to keep it hidden from me, he had pushed me away further than I ever thought possible. He's been lying to me? I whispered, the hurt and disbelief thick in my voice. He's been hiding this from me all this time. Natalie's silence was answer enough. I don't know what to say, Mom. He's been ashamed of it. He didn't want you to know that the pressure has been building for so long, and now he's made bad choices because of it. I sat there, stunned, unable to process everything she had just told me. How could Michael have let it get to this point? How could he have kept me in the dark while he spiraled deeper into debt? It felt like a betrayal on top of betrayal. I had trusted him with everything. I had poured my heart and soul into raising him. And now I was learning that the person I thought he had become was nothing more than a fragile mask, hiding the truth of his struggles. I don't know what to do with this, Natalie, I said, softly. How could he do this to me? How could he let it all go this far without even trying to come to me for help? Natalie's voice softened, almost as if she was speaking from her own pain. I think he was afraid, Mom. Afraid that you would judge him, that you would be disappointed in him. He didn't want to let you down. But he already has, I replied, my voice breaking. He has let me down in ways I can't even put into words. I know. And I'm so sorry for that, she said, her voice full of sympathy. But maybe you can help him. He's in a bad place right now, and he needs you more than ever. He needs your forgiveness. Her words stung. Forgiveness? After everything that had happened, was I really expected to just forgive him and move on? The pain of his betrayal was too fresh, too raw. I didn't know if I could find it in myself to forgive him, not yet. Not when the wound was still so deep. But Natalie's words lingered in my mind. Maybe she was right. Maybe Michael did need me. Maybe he was still the son I had raised, the son I had always loved, and not the stranger I had come to believe he had become. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that this wasn't just about the house, the car, or the money. It was about the man Michael had become. And if I was going to help him, if I was going to be the mother he needed, I had to understand his pain, his struggles. I had to be there for him, even if it meant facing my own hurt. That evening, I sat in the quiet of my home, reflecting on everything that had come to light. The betrayal, the lies, the lost trust, it all seemed so overwhelming. But amidst the turmoil, there was a glimmer of hope. Maybe Michael could be redeemed. Maybe, just maybe, there was a way for us to rebuild what had been broken. The road ahead would be long, and the pain would take time to heal. But I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't ready to give up on my son. Not yet. Not when there was still a chance for healing, for forgiveness, for a future where we could both move past the mistakes and find a way to repair the bond that had once been unbreakable. The story wasn't over, not by a long shot. And as I picked up the phone to call Michael, I felt a mixture of fear and hope. This was the beginning of a new chapter, one that I hoped would lead us back to each other, one step at a time. Ask ChatGPT.